Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Humza Yousaf has been urged to fire and investigate Jenny Gilruth over accusations that she deliberately delayed rail work while she was the Transport Secretary, simply to benefit her constituents and make her look better in the light in case there was any kind of electioneering. It also cost the taxpayer millions more by having the work done outside of holiday times. This, if so, would be a major breach of the ministerial code. It is a sackable offence, and in fact it would be a criminal matter. She has not yet resigned, he has not yet fired her. And yet if this is the case and he does not fire her, then he is complicit in the breaking of these rules. So he is in a bit of a quandary. So we'll have a look at the example of the article even to see what kind of person she is and what she is alleged to have done. And I think there's definitely in this case no smoke without fire. Here goes. So Yousaf told to proclaim that Gilruth broke the code over Railworks' decision. Scotland's Education Secretary has been accused of breaching the ministerial code after reportedly delaying Railworks to benefit her constituency while she was Transport Minister. And of course she doesn't have the authority to do that if she has, because even if she could do it for other people, but for her own she should of course have recused herself. To do otherwise would open her up to these charges. But of course she is now opened up to these charges because that's exactly what has happened. The facts are laid bare. They were delayed while she was secretary, and it was her constituency that benefited. The First Minister has been urged to investigate these claims that she used her position as Transport Minister to force a planned rail works to be delayed. Miss Gilruth refused to say whether she'd broken the ministerial code, telling journalists she took decisions in the best interests of the travelling public. Which means she obviously did, because if she hadn't, she would immediately have come out and said no. So you know that when they don't immediately come out and say no, then the answer must obviously be yes. Douglas Ross has insisted the intervention by Miss Gilruth was a clear-cut, sackable offence which cost taxpayers money. But First Minister Humza Yousaf, the weakling in government who cannot bear to fire people in case it makes him look weak for choosing them, accused the Conservatives of throwing mud and maintained her decisions were made to benefit the whole rail network and passengers, and that, of course, is utter rubbish. In her defence, Mr Yousaf claimed Miss Gilruth had perfectly legitimate reasons to make an intervention. Really? Why didn't she tell them? She hasn't saying anything. Asked by journalists if she broke the ministerial code, Miss Gilruth said, "I've got nothing further to add other than the fact that as Transport Minister I took every decision in that post in the best interest of the travelling public and the people of Scotland, but mainly the people of her constituency." The row centres on proposed line electrification work between Edinburgh, Haymarket and Dalmeny in West Lothian, which would have caused 8 days of disruption from Boxing Day last year. And of course she doesn't want her constituents to be without railways and things like that during the holiday period, even though that's the best time to do it because there isn't much travel along. Maybe it was noise, who knows. Miss Gilruth, who represents Mid Fife and Glen Rothes as an MSP, is now Education Secretary, asked for the works to be postponed. So she was rubbish as transport, now she's gone to education, and that's failing too. She's following a long tradition of failure, so she'll probably likely end up being the First Minister. The Tories say that officials told the Scottish Government this would lead to an extra $1 million in cost and cause disruption to 9,000 passengers a day due to the work taking place at non-holiday times. Obviously you want it on the holiday when people aren't going to work and back, but no, that isn't good enough for Gilruth and her constituents. The work has still not been carried out because they couldn't get time to do it, and therefore, Anyway, the FM said Mr Ross was making very serious accusations indeed, and there'd be an appropriate investigation. That's good, they're going to investigate, but who's going to do the investigation? Will it be someone neutral, or will it be someone chosen by the SNP? However, he did say the situation was not as Mr Ross described, saying the decision was made for the correct reasons. Well, what are they then? In order to benefit the entire network. Well, he can't give those reasons, and the Network Rail said they wanted to do them at that particular time, were told not to. Mr. Ross held up pages of emails received under the Freedom of Information Act. They absolutely hate that act, don't they? According to the Tory leader, ScotRail officials told the Scottish Government the changes would lead to greater cost, with more customers disrupted or inconvenienced, and with this revised access plan. Mr. Yousaf said the works would have led to disruption further afield than Fife, and Miss Gilruth said she wanted more done to avoid more rail delays over the festive period, which is the best time to do them because fewer people are travelling. Mr. Ross said she should not even have been involved in this decision. She should have recused herself because of the clear potential for a conflict of interest. Well, this is the SNP all the way down the line. They don't care about conflicts of interest, do they? He suggested the political interference forced Chris Gibb to resign as chief executive of ScotRail Holdings. Miss Gilruth's decision led to a poorer service, he said, and it looks like a clear breach of the ministerial code. He added that it was a clear-cut, sackable offence. Mr. Yousaf said what Mr. Ross is hoping to do, because he's undoubtedly desperate, is throwing as much mud as possible and hoping that some of it sticks. The First Minister said Mr. Ross was being selective in his reading of the emails. He said it was pretty clear that Miss Gilruth made the decision to minimise disruption for passengers across the network. She shouldn't have made the decision. It was her constituency. She should have said no, carry on, no. And that is the problem you have. None of them want to step back and do this. They're all desperate. What it is they're all desperate to look good for their constituents, because they all know that with these seat changes coming up and the possibility of that election being not going the way they intend, considering how badly they're doing in the polls, that they're all desperate to keep their seats. And so it's anything they can do, even breaking the rules, breaking the ministerial code, and showing people up as what basically corrupt crooks they all really are, and then how they all lie for each other to cover it up. Aha! I'm not saying that they are doing it. I'm just saying he has the potential for doing it. Cover my arse. Anyway, there we are. There's those two in cahoots. One's the Transport Secretary. One's the former Transport Secretary. Both of them are failures. And I'll come up. How many more ministers have got to break the code? How many more people in his government have got to show themselves up to be susceptible to bribery, corruption, or bending the rules? This really is a government of criminals, isn't it? You can't trust any of them, and I certainly don't trust her. She's shown herself up to be completely untrustworthy, so bound to do well in the SNP. They're all crooks. I've never seen a party so filled with feeble-minded, weak-willed, stupid, ignorant, criminal people as I have with the SNP. And this just confirms even more of it. Why on earth wouldn't you look at what's going on and say, oh, that involves my constituency. I can't make that decision. I recuse myself. Never going to happen, is it? There's no damn honour. That's why. And there never will be. Anyway, I shall stop now. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you see on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep an eye out for the ferries video. Goodbye.